Today, we're breaking down self management or hiring a professional management company. I got Lourdes Fernando with me. What's going on, Lourdes? How are you today?
Hey David, I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, today we're going to break down something that either scares people, a lot of times scares people, or they don't even want to do it, right? Where you own a property, you don't want to sell it, but you're turning it into an investment property. Or you're thinking about buying a multifamily, which we talk about all the time. And there's that fear of like, well, I don't like maybe managing these people. Can I protect myself? Or even Airbnb being a property, right? There's different ways that you can do it. So, Lourdes, you're an expert in this field. Kind of walk us through high level kind of considerations that go into should I hire a property management company and pay a fee, or should I self manage so I can save that money? Or I guess an option, if it exists, like a hybrid, like, hey, some things they handle, some things I'll handle. Walk us through it.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of touch on my personal experience. So I do a mixture between, I guess, a hybrid. So I have a property management run my Airbnbs because that's too much work for me because I'm not responding to calls at super late at night or whatever the case might be. So I have someone managing that, but it comes at a huge cost. And then the others, because I am a real estate professional and I deal, I know how to screen out tenants, et cetera. I do that for some of my clients. So I have the expertise needed. So I self manage the other tenants that I have. So I do a hybrid and I do kind of want to break down what the self management actually looks like. And then we can go from there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting concept. That also worries me, like finding the people and yeah, and doing all that stuff. So thanks for that, Lourdes. And what so let's first break down self management and what that looks like in the reality of responsibilities. Because if you've never when you live in a home, something breaks, you just go fix it,
Yeah.
or you stop by Home Depot or whatever, right? Grab the stuff, come back and fix it yourself.
Some people.
If the furnace something wrong with it, you just call and have someone there.
Yeah.
But you're there, right? Now, if you're hundreds of miles away, and the tenant's like calling, like, "Hey, Lourdes, the furnace broke." You're like, "Did they really break? Did they break it?" Like,
Yeah.
kind of all those fears. But anyways, let's first break down self management and really what that looks like from
For sure.
overall.
Yeah. So the very first thing on self management, you are going to be saving a lot of money. So it depends on your strategy. So if you have a long term renter, about 12 months, you are looking between 8 to 12% on the rents.
Oh wow.
So that can be a big expense, especially if you have higher rents, and that's every single month. And what do? They collect the check, they call you for approval, or you can even say like, "Hey, if it's under $500, just take care of it, deduct it from my rent, etc." They usually help you. I know with I'm sorry, I'm going into the management part. So that's a savings of 8 to 12% for Airbnbs. I've seen some go between 20 to 30%. So it
Oh
just
wow.
depends. So that can be a huge savings if you do this by yourself. You also have direct control over the entire process. So from selecting the tenants, because if you give it to a property management company, they select the tenants, they do the whole thing, they do the screening process. When you self-manage, you have the ability to actually look through the entire profile and say like, okay, this is going to be a good fit for my tenant. And then also personal engagement. They're dealing with you directly, so you have a little bit more authority versus a property management company that actually has to call you, get approval, etc. So there is more of that personal engagement. And I found for people who do self-manage, they typically have tenants extend a little bit longer than they were, well, sometimes with the property management companies. So that can be some of the pros. Now, you did mention, like, if you are 100 miles away, some of the cons can be the time commitment. So, there are some tenants that every single teeny tiny little thing, they see a spider. Hey, there's a spider. Like, okay, I got to get pest control out there, blah, blah, blah. So, you do have to put a little bit of more elbow grease in there. And then there's some tenants that, like, I had a tenant that never called me for anything. I'm like, "Are you there?
Ideal.
Are you there?" You know what I mean? So you do have the mixture between the both, so you do have to put a little bit of time in there. And then also when you're finding a new tenant, that's the time commitment as well because you have to spend time reviewing the applications, giving them tours, walking them through the property. So it can be a little, little, it can be a little complicated. Now, what some people do, they do kind of, they hire a real estate professional, say, "Hey, just find me a tenant, and then I'll manage it after the fact." So that can be another option. So they do the screening, they help you through the process. They're the ones showing the property, so it's kind of like hands off. So if you are kind of further away, like out of the state, you can say like, "Hey, I want to, hey, Mr. Mrs. Real Estate Agent, I want you to find me the tenant, and I'll take it from there."
Right.
So that can be another option. um, Required expertise. Now, this is very important, especially if you're going to self manage, because you have to be up to date with the new current tenant laws. Like,
That
um,
is a huge one. Like
huge, like,
security deposits, if you do those like that, you could get in hot water.
and it's changing all the time. So, if this is a direction of self management, if that is a way that you want to go, just make sure that you are up to date with like what is going on in your particular city, which can be a little time consuming, but better to know now. Now, I do know that they are going away with move in fees in certain areas of the states. And that's become very popular because with the security deposits, if somebody submits a security deposit and they damage your place, whatever the case might be, in certain states, you do have to go to court to get the security deposit. You can't just keep the security deposit. So, what people shifted over was to these move in fees. Now, the move in fees is a one time payment. If it's
Everybody pays it.
everybody pays it. So, and you don't get that money back. It's just, that helps with cutting down like the cost of a turnover, which is typically paint and et cetera. So there's that aspect of it too, that you have to stay, like I said, on top of the laws and just make sure that you know what that is. And then also, if you're still going to self manage, you want to make sure that you have a whole team set in place. So you want to make sure that you have a plumber on hand, a contractor, a handyman, a furnace guy. Like, I mean, you want to make sure that you have a list of all these people. So if your tenants ever call you with any of these issues, and especially if you're out of state or you can't physically be there, like how you said, "I'll go to Home Depot and fix it yourself." No, that may not be, that might not be the case. So you want to make sure that you have just a list of people that you've worked with or recommendations if you are going to self manage, so that you can start calling through the list. If anything were to break, you want to make sure that you get it done in a timely manner. And then what else?
Yeah, no, I'll just chime in on that. I can't stress
Mhm,
that enough. Just, but even like being a homeowner, you want to have those contacts, right? Because like when I have a boiler in my place, right?
hopefully,
So
yeah.
like I'm sitting down here working, and all of a sudden I hear this crazy noise coming out of the boiler. I'm like, this is it, the house is exploding. But I was able to one figure out how to turn it off, so know how your appliances work, right?
Yeah.
That's important. But then I was able to call someone to get me it. Now I have a team of people where I'm like, if something happens, I can have someone come in. But that's a pretty good point on that, Lourdes. So thank you on that piece. And now, what would be the difference, Lourdes? We have people that PCS across the country, and they're leaving their property. We have people that are like, oh, I have a really low interest rate, a lot of equity in the property. I can make a good amount of
Mhm.
rent, and then I could actually offset my new mortgage payment with the higher rates. All of that makes sense, right? So that's kind of like that situation we just talked about. But what about the person that's thinking about buying a multifamily? And then we help a lot of veterans do that, right? It's a huge benefit. We have
Mhm.
a whole video on the channel talking about multifamily purchases. What's that consideration look like? Because it's different. You live in the investment, and then you
Yeah.
potentially have three other units like you do. And so, what would be that consideration for that case? Like, do you lean more self managed, or do you kind of lean more towards hiring someone from a separation standpoint? Like, I want to separate myself from the tenants because I see them all the time, right? Because, like, oh, we're really friendly, but then, like, they don't pay rent. Now, what do I do?
Yeah. So it's once again, it just depends on how much you. I have I have a landlord that is like, "Don't tell them that I'm the landlord." And then I have others like, yeah, tell them that I'm the landlord. So it just depends on your personal preference on how much. Usually if they know you, they see you, it just really depends. I think every case scenario would be different. Personally, like with I do what I can take on myself for my personal situation. So, like I said earlier, I have a management company for my Airbnbs because I'm not dealing with all of that, and I could. I
Right.
have the capacity to do so, but I don't want it.
But it's
So I
time. It's
it's
time. It's
so much time. So I gladly would pay for that. And then midterm rental, I manage that myself because that I just have to find tenants every couple months, and I'm okay with that. And I have a very strict not strict, but yeah, pretty strict process on how I filter those out. And then long term, I'm going to start doing like a little bit more long term. So for one of my units, and that one I'm also going to self manage because I have the experience. Now, a lot of my clients, like I said, they'll hire me to go and list the properties, screen them out, place a tenant, and then they take it from there instead of paying the additional 10% per month, which can be costly, at that point. So that's another option.
yeah. So I mean, that's basically what I'm hearing, Loris, is it's you pay to have time back to you, right? You pay to be like if you're working a regular job and you get a call at like 3 o'clock with an emergency that like let's say something major like you live in a hot area but air conditioning went out, like that's an emergency, right?
Right.
Now you
Mhm.
have to stop what you're doing and then doing it, so you're basically paying for that time back and experience, right?
For sure.
But like, to your point too is that you could like if you're living in the property it might be a little bit easier because you're on site, but then you have this like, do I want them to know that I actually managed it, I'm the landlord or not? So we've touched on the self management. We've also touched on the professional management and the hybrid, right? So for if you guys didn't catch it out there, the property management, you're paying a fee depending on the type of services you're asking for. Long term versus midterm versus Airbnb are going to have different price points.
Yep.
You could manage some yourself and not others. So that's kind of like that hybrid model, and you can do like the hybrid models is a la carte service, right? So like Lourdes, you mentioned like, hey, I need to find, I have a 2 unit, I only need 1 unit rented. You post it yourself or you hire someone and then they fill that gap. Then on a monthly basis, you're like, hey, I really don't need to anybody, but hey, I might be selling or renting my property out. And then you're like, well, then I might switch to doing a full out property management company.
Yep.
And you got to really check out what their agreements look like, because sometimes you just like, well, it's a month to month contract. And you're like, hey, I've hired them. I don't like them. Because that's one thing, Loris, that I hear a lot from folks, right? Is there's good experiences and bad experiences, and a good experience could turn into a bad one. Maybe there's a shift in management and vice versa, right? So
Right.
just kind of figure out what's right for you. And a lot of times it comes down to the money, right? Like you got to run all your numbers, like what's included in your rent, what's tenant paying for that you're not paying for. Write that out every month for yourself, because Lourdes, we did a video not too long ago talking about debt service coverage ratios, right? That's
Yep.
like, what is the actual cost that you are going to be incurring on a monthly basis? Like you really need to nail down the budget for the property, the taxes, increases in insurance. All those things are going to be factored into, are you raising rents or not? Are you marginally thin, right? Because Lawyers, I guess that could be another thing. Like if you're collecting 1,500 a month, but your mortgage and all in is 1,500 a month, and now you're giving up 10%, let's say, you're losing $150 a month. Now you're
Right.
negative cash flow, right? So this is why you got to start with putting your budget together, because you know how much you're spending every month.
Right.
Or I guess if you're buying a property, Lourdes, can you ask a listing agent or ask a seller to be like, hey, can I see what your water bill, electric bill, heating bill is every month? Is that even like, can you even do that?
You can. You can request that information if they have it, and if they live there, they can say, "Okay, this is, like, what," but I wouldn't really, everybody uses energy and bills differently. So
Yep.
there's people who like, like turn every light off as soon as they leave a room, and there's some people that leave it on all day. So
That's my
it's
wife.
like, so I would take that kind of like, with a grain of salt and say like, okay, this is like the average type of thing.
Yeah.
When we walk through properties, we look at things like, how old are the windows? Do they have a furnace? Is a high efficiency furnace? Is like, is it going to be like super expensive to maintain this building?
Yeah, that's we did a whole video on that as well for you guys to check out, because that is like that's a huge piece of it. I just had a furnace go out, but anyways, air conditioning unit at another property. But we're gonna be doing more videos around renovations as well for you guys out there. Anything else, Lourdes, you want to add before we close out?
I think the no, it just really depends on each person and how much time commitment, they wanna get. You want more time, then you pay a little bit more upfront. And yeah, and then when you screen out your property management company, it's important for you to understand all the tasks that they're going to be doing and make sure that it makes sense to you financially. So if they say, yeah, if like with my management company, I'm like anything under $500, I don't need any type of approval, just get it done, type of thing. And I see the bill and I'm like, "Oh, why didn't they call me? Because I could have gotten it cheaper." But, at the end of the day, you're the one that, does that directive. And I just don't want to get bothered by these little things. That's the reality of it. So that's just, your time commitment is very important. That's one thing that we can't get back. And I would consult a real estate agent just to see like, hey, what is your process of like screening tenants out? Also property management company, hey, what are your fees? What do you do, etc. And see which one makes most sense for you. So that's my advice.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Lourdes, and thanks for everyone watching. Please make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.